Welcome back, everyone. It's time for our 6th deep dive into this e-commerce series.
Oh, I love these deep dives.
I'm John Tall, your host for this e-commerce journey, and today we're going to be tackling a subject that, well, let's be honest, it might not be as flashy as, like, creating the perfect social media ad.
Right.
Or designing a logo that's going to make people stop and stare, but this stuff is crucial.
Oh, absolutely.
We're diving into the legal side of e-commerce.
Yes. The nitty-gritty, the stuff that can really trip you up if you're not careful.
Yeah, it's kind of like you wouldn't build a house without a solid foundation, right?
Exactly. Legal compliance. That's your foundation for your e-commerce business. It's got to be rock solid.
Okay, so let's start laying that foundation brick by brick.
Yeah.
Olivia, what's the first thing our budding e-commerce entrepreneurs need to really wrap their heads around?
Let's talk taxes. I know, not the most exciting topic, but super important.
Yeah, taxes, everyone's favorite.
But seriously, it's not as simple as just picking one sales tax rate and calling it a day. In e-commerce, you're dealing with this crazy web of state taxes, local taxes, even special district taxes sometimes.
Whoa, hold on a sec. Special district taxes. What are we talking about here? Break that down for us.
Okay, so imagine you're an online seller, right? You're based in, let's say, California, and you ship a product to someone in Rhinebeck, New York. Now, you might have to collect New York State sales tax.
Okay, that makes sense.
But then on top of that, you might also have to collect Dutchess County sales tax and even a special district tax just for Rhinebeck.
Wow. So many layers.
It can get really complicated really fast, and if you don't get it right, it can seriously hurt your bottom line.
Yeah, that's not something you want to mess around with.
Exactly. But luckily, there are tools and software out there that can help you calculate these taxes automatically based on the customer's location. It's still important to understand the basics, though, to make sure you're staying compliant and avoiding any nasty surprises from a tax audit.
Makes sense. So, taxes are a must-know. What else should be on our legal radar, Olivia?
All right, let's talk about secure payment processing. This
Yeah.
is super critical. I mean, your customers are trusting you with their credit card information, that sensitive stuff.
Oh, yeah. Big responsibility.
Huge. It's like you need to protect that data like it's Fort Knox. We've all heard those stories about those data breaches. Seems like every other week another company is getting hacked.
Yeah, it's scary stuff.
It is, and those breaches can be disastrous. Just last year, a major payment processor had a security breach, and it exposed over 1.5 million accounts.
Wow.
Talk about a PR nightmare and the damage to customer trust.
Oh, yeah. Once that trust is gone, it's tough to get it back.
Exactly. So how can e-commerce businesses make sure they're choosing a payment gateway that's actually secure? What should they be looking for?
Great question.
Well, the first thing is to look for a provider that's PCI compliant. That stands for Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard. It's basically a set of standards designed to, protect credit card data and minimize the risk of breaches.
Okay, PCI compliance, got it.
But don't just stop there. Look for extra security features, like fraud detection tools, two-factor authentication, regular security updates.
So it's worth doing your homework.
Absolutely. Don't just go with the cheapest or easiest option. Secure payment system, it's an investment in your business. It's an investment in your customers' peace of mind. It's worth it.
Okay, so we've covered taxes. We've covered secure payment processing. What's next?
All right, let's shift gears a bit and talk about something that can be a bit of a minefield, especially for new e-commerce entrepreneurs: intellectual property.
Oh, yeah. The world of trademarks and patents and copyrights. All right, let's say I'm designing T-shirts, right?
All right.
Funny slogans. Cat-themed, of course.
Of course, gotta have cats.
Do I need to worry about intellectual property rights?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, are those cat slogans mine?
Well, they might be hilarious, but you need to make sure they're not stepping on anyone else's trademarks. You don't want to get into any legal trouble.
So how do I know if someone already owns the rights to a certain slogan or design?
There are a few ways to do your due diligence. You can search the trademark database, you can talk to an intellectual property lawyer, or even just do a thorough Google search. It's always better to be safe than sorry, right?
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to trademarks.
Right. And what about protecting my own intellectual property? So let's say I've come up with a truly unique cat-tastic slogan. How do I make sure nobody else can steal it?
Well, that's where registering your trademark comes in. It gives you that legal protection and the exclusive right to use that slogan for your business. You've got to protect your creations.
Absolutely. I don't want to see someone else, getting rich off my brilliant cat-themed ideas. So we've got taxes, secure payment processing, and intellectual property all under our belt. What's next on our legal checklist, Olivia?
All right, let's talk about how your products actually get to those eager customers shipping. Getting those t-shirts from your warehouse to your customer's doorstep, there's actually a lot more to it than you might think.
Oh, yeah. I've definitely gotten lost in the rabbit hole of shipping rates and restrictions before. It's a lot.
It is. It's not as simple as, slapping a label on a box and sending it on its merry way. Different carriers, they have different rules, and some items, they're commonly restricted altogether.
Like what kind of things are we talking about?
Things like aerosols, lithium batteries, hazardous materials, anything that could be dangerous to transport, you got to be careful with that. And then there's stuff like perishable items, like food, plants, things like that. You got to make sure they're handled properly and shipped quickly so they don't, arrive wilted or spoiled.
Yeah, no one wants a melted chocolate bar. So how do you even begin to navigate this whole shipping jungle?
Well, start by familiarizing yourself with the regulations of the specific carriers you're going to use, like the Postal Service or major shipping companies. They all have their own rules. Check their websites, read the fine print, and if you're thinking about shipping internationally, well, that's a whole other can of worms.
Oh, we're going to need a bigger boat for that. Olivia, hold that thought. We're going to dive into the wild world of international shipping at the next part of our legal deep dive, so stay tuned. All right, welcome back to our legal deep dive into e-commerce. Now, before the break, we're getting into the nitty-gritty of shipping, and Olivia, you mentioned that international shipping. That's a whole other beast.
It is. It's not just different carriers and their rules. You've got customs regulations, import duties, a whole bunch of other stuff to think about.
So, okay, let's say I want to ship my awesome cat t-shirts to a customer in, I don't know, Australia. Where do I even begin?
Well, first you got to check if there are any restrictions on importing clothing into Australia. Some countries, they have, specific regulations on textiles, labeling requirements. They might even ban certain materials altogether.
Wow. Okay. So I got to do my research, make sure I'm not sending something that's going to get stuck at customs.
Exactly. And then you got to figure out the harmonized system code for your product.
The what? The harmonized system code.
Yeah, it sounds a little intimidating, but it's basically an international system for classifying traded products. It's a way to make sure everyone's on the same page when it comes to, what's what.
So is that like a secret code or something?
Not really, but it's important for determining the right import duties and taxes. Each product has its own code, and those codes are used to calculate how much you have to pay when you're, importing goods into a country.
Okay, so I've checked the import regulations. I've figured out this harmonized system code thing. What's next?
Well, then you got to factor in customs duties. Those are taxes that are imposed on goods when they cross international borders.
Ah, taxes. Can't escape them.
Nope, they're everywhere. And those customs duties, they can vary a lot depending on the product and the country you're shipping to.
Okay, so I need to do my homework. Be prepared for some extra costs.
Yep, exactly. And don't forget about documentation. Things like commercial invoices, packing lists, customs officials. They can be pretty picky, and if your paperwork isn't right, you can run into delays or even get fined.
Yikes. Okay, so international shipping definitely requires some extra effort. But hey, think of it this way. Your Catcastic designs, they're bringing joy to feline enthusiasts all over the world.
Absolutely. And expanding your reach globally, that can be a huge boost for your business. It's definitely worth the extra effort.
Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about something a little closer to home, literally. Have you ever thought about running your e-commerce business from your own house?
Oh, yeah. I think a lot of people dream about that. Working in your pajamas, setting your own hours, it sounds pretty appealing.
Right. But are there any legal things I need to think about before I, ditch the office and set up shop in my living room?
Oh, definitely. It's not as simple as just, moving your laptop to the couch. For starters, you gotta check your local zoning laws. Some areas, they have restrictions on running commercial businesses from home, especially if you're getting a lot of deliveries or storing a lot of inventory.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't want my neighbors complaining about delivery trucks blocking the street all the time.
Exactly. And then there's HOAs, homeowners associations. They can have their own rules about what kind of businesses you can run from home, even restrictions on signage.
So zoning laws, HOA rules, anything else I need to be aware of?
Well, think about inventory. Piling boxes of stuff in your living room, it might not be the best look, and it could even be a fire hazard, you know?
Oh yeah, good point. So what's the solution if I don't have the space or the permits to run my business from home?
Well, there are workarounds. One option is dropshipping. That's where you partner with the supplier and they handle all the storage and shipping for you. You know, you basically just take the orders and pass them on to the supplier.
Oh yeah, drop shipping. I've heard about that. That sounds pretty convenient.
It is. It's a great way to get started without having to deal with all the logistics of, warehousing and shipping. And another option is using a third-party logistics provider, or 3PL. They can handle everything from warehousing to fulfillment, so you don't have to.
So even if working from home isn't feasible, there are still ways to simplify things.
Absolutely. There are always options.
All right. So Olivia, before we move on to the next legal must know, let's talk about something that might seem obvious, but it's often overlooked. Age restrictions.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one. It's crucial to be aware of any age restrictions related to the products you're selling.
Yeah, you obviously can't sell alcohol or tobacco to minors, but what about other things? Like video games or certain types of clothing. Are there age restrictions on that stuff?
Absolutely. Some video games have age ratings because of their content, and you got to make sure you're not selling them to underage customers. Same goes for certain types of clothing, like swimwear. Some places have rules about that.
Wow, I never even thought about that. So how can e-commerce businesses make sure they're complying with all these age restrictions?
Well, it starts with knowing your products and understanding the regulations. You might need to implement age verification systems on your website, especially during checkout, just to confirm the customer's age before you complete the sale.
Yeah, makes sense. It's all about responsible selling, protecting yourself, and protecting your customer.
Exactly. It's not worth taking any risks when it comes to something like that.
All right, Olivia. Before we wrap up this part of our legal deep dive, let's tackle one more essential topic that often gets pushed aside, especially by new business owners who are trying to keep costs down. Business insurance.
Oh, yeah. I know it can seem like an extra expense when you're just starting out, and every penny counts.
Right, but is it really necessary?
Trust me, it's an investment, not an expense. Think of it like a safety net for your business, It protects you from all sorts of potential risks and liabilities.
Okay, so what kind of risks are we talking about here? Can you give us some examples of when business insurance would really come in handy?
Sure. Let's say you're selling, handmade candles online, and for some reason, one of your candles malfunctions and causes a fire in a customer's home. You could be held liable for the damages, even if you weren't negligent in making the candle.
Wow, that's scary. So what kind of insurance would cover me in a situation like that?
Well, that's where product liability insurance comes in. It protects you from lawsuits arising from injuries or damages caused by products you sell.
Okay, so product liability is a must-have. What other types of insurance should e-commerce businesses consider?
Another important one is professional liability insurance, sometimes called errors and omissions insurance. It protects you if a customer claims that you gave them faulty advice, or you made a mistake in fulfilling an order, or you caused them some kind of financial harm.
So it's not just about physical products, it's about the services and advice you provide as well.
Exactly. And depending on your business, there might be other types of insurance to think about, like cyber liability insurance if you're storing sensitive customer data, or even business interruption insurance, to cover lost income if something happens that forces you to shut down temporarily, like a natural disaster or something.
So it's like building a safety net for your business.
Yeah.
You hope you never need it, but it's there just in case.
Exactly. Having the right insurance coverage, it gives you peace of mind and lets you focus on growing your business without constantly worrying about what could go wrong.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this part of our legal deep dive. International shipping, home-based businesses, age restrictions, business insurance. What else are we going to tackle in the final part?
We still got some important stuff to cover, like demystifying PCI compliance and navigating the always changing world of customer privacy. Stay tuned.
All right, welcome back, everyone. We are in the home stretch now of our legal deep dive into the e-commerce world. Olivia, you mentioned before we took a break that we still needed to tackle PCI compliance and customer privacy.
We do. Those are two really important areas to cover, especially if you want to build a trustworthy, sustainable online business. Let's start with PCI compliance, which I know can sound kind of intimidating.
Yeah, it does sound a little scary. So break it down for us. What is PCI compliance? Why should e-commerce businesses care about it?
Okay, so PCI compliance stands for Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard. Basically, it's a set of security standards that are designed to protect, credit card information, minimize the risk of data breaches.
So keeping those credit card numbers safe, right?
Exactly. You'd be surprised how many businesses, even big ones, have, gaps in their security. PCI compliance helps create a baseline level of security for the whole industry, protects businesses and consumers.
Okay, so it's like a security system for your online store. Makes sense.
Exactly. Now, you might be thinking, well, I'm using a popular e-commerce platform. They say they're PCI compliant, so I'm good, right?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Well, it's great that a lot of platforms have built-in security features and they comply with PCI standards, but it's still important to understand the requirements, especially if you're using third-party payment processors or handling any cardholder data yourself.
So even if the platform's got my back, I still need to do my due diligence.
Exactly. Okay, so let's move on to our final legal consideration for today, customer privacy.
Okay, this is something we all experience as, online shoppers. You get that feeling of being tracked everywhere you go online, and turns out there are laws about that.
There are. We're way past the Wild West days of the early internet when it comes to, data collection. We've got regulations now like CCPA, the California Consumer Privacy Act, and GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation in Europe. These laws give individuals more control over their personal information and set guidelines for how businesses can collect and use that data.
Okay, so what do these regulations mean for us e-commerce folks? Do we need to become legal experts overnight?
You don't need to memorize every single clause, but you do need to understand the basic principles. Transparency is super important. Be upfront about what data you're collecting, how you're using it, who you're sharing it with. Always get explicit consent from your customers before you collect any personal information, and give them the option to opt out if they want to.
So treating customer data with respect, it's not just good business, it's the law.
You got it. Building trust with your customers, it's essential in e-commerce. They need to feel confident that you're handling their data responsibly.
Okay, so let's recap. We've covered a ton of ground in this legal deep dive. We talked about taxes, secure payment processing, intellectual property, shipping, home-based businesses, age restrictions, business insurance, PCI compliance, and customer privacy.
That's a lot.
It is a lot to take in.
It can seem overwhelming, but remember, legal compliance, it's not just about memorizing a bunch of rules. It's about building a strong foundation for your business, protecting yourself and your customers, and operating with integrity.
Absolutely. It's an investment in your business's future.
Exactly. And if you're ever unsure about something, don't hesitate to reach out to a legal professional. Better safe than sorry, right?
Always good advice. Well, that wraps up our deep dive into the legal side of e-commerce for today. Hopefully you found it informative and maybe even a little bit exciting.
It's been great chatting with you all.
And as always, we love to hear from you. Leave us a comment with any questions you have, or maybe even suggest some topics you'd like us to explore in future deep dives. What are you struggling with? What would you like to learn more about?
We're here to help.
Thanks for joining us, and until next time, happy selling.